Welcome to the debate. Today we're diving deep into an issue that's truly electrifying the drone industry, the potential U.S. ban on DJI drones. This isn't just policy talk, it's potentially a game changer with massive implications across many sectors. The conversation is swirling around provisions in recent national defense legislation, and it's fundamentally reshaping the unmanned aerial systems or UAS trade. The central question we're wrestling with is this. Does the potential U.S. ban on new DJI drones, driven by concerns over national security and data privacy, represent a necessary measure to protect vital national interests, or does the substantial disruption it would cause to critical sectors and countless users actually outweigh these perceived benefits? I'll be making the case for this ban as a necessary step for our national security.
And I'm ready to dissect what is, without a doubt, one of the most pressing and, frankly, unnerving issues for the drone industry right now. We really need to examine the very real-world consequences and the immense uncertainty that this impending legislative action is creating for everyone from, major corporations right down to everyday hobbyists.
Exactly. And this legislative push to ban DJI is, at its core, a direct and, I think, crucial response to concerns about national security and the privacy of sensitive data. These aren't minor issues, they're paramount. The fiscal year 2025 National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, passed late last year. That's the legislative bedrock here. It mandates a formal security review of DJI's products by a U.S. national security agency, with a hard deadline of December 23, 2025. Now, crucially, if this audit isn't completed by that date, a ban will be automatically triggered. This means DJI would effectively be added to the FCC's covered list, a designation for equipment deemed a national security threat, which would instantly prohibit the sale and importation of new DJI drones into the U.S. This requirement, it isn't arbitrary. It underscores a critical need to address our, frankly, heavy reliance on a single foreign manufactured technology, especially one with such widespread use across sectors vital to national security. The intent is clear: to establish a more secure technological baseline for our nation, mitigating potential risks associated with that dependence.
Right. I come at it from a very different perspective, though. Well, look, no one disputes the importance of safeguarding national security and data privacy. The current situation regarding this potential ban is generating immense uncertainty and disruption. And primarily, it's because of the specific, almost passive-aggressive mechanism of its implementation. As you mentioned, we're already in July 2025, well past the halfway point. And crucially, no audit has even been scheduled. Not even scheduled. This leaves the entire drone industry, from manufacturers to service providers, and indeed, countless consumers, in a deeply precarious position, forced to plan for a future that is entirely speculative. The ban, if it's triggered, would primarily impact the import and sale of new DJI products. We're talking popular consumer series like Mavic, Air, Mini, FPV, as well as enterprise workhorses like the Matrice series. It could even extend to essential components like gimbals, accessories, perhaps even replacement parts. Now, given DJI's dominant market share, it accounts for a vast majority of commercial and consumer drones in the United States, such a restriction would have wide-ranging, immediate, and, I think, undeniably detrimental effects across various sectors. It creates a vacuum that our current domestic industry is simply not equipped to fill overnight.
Okay. So while that uncertainty is certainly real, let's maybe zoom in on why this automatic trigger was designed this way. It's not just a technicality, is it? The automatic trigger, the one that adds DJI to the FCC's covered list if the audit isn't done by December 23rd. Well, that isn't an oversight, nor is it merely some administrative formality. The core insight here, I believe, is that it's a precisely designed legislative hammer. Its purpose is to force a critical, maybe long overdue review of foreign technology due to legitimate and pressing national security vulnerabilities and data privacy concerns. This move is fundamentally about reducing long-term strategic reliance by proactively addressing the existing overdependence on overseas suppliers. The government isn't waiting for, a direct, undeniable compromise of national data. It's implementing a safeguard. It's creating an urgent incentive for the necessary security assessment to happen, or failing that, for a default protection to be put in place. This isn't just about what might happen down the road. It's about mitigating a systemic risk that is arguably already present in our infrastructure.
I grasp the strategic intent, I do. But let's look at the concrete situation. We're already deep into 2025, and this crucial audit still hasn't even been scheduled. This isn't just about forcing a review anymore. It's about the very real possibility of a ban triggered by bureaucratic inaction, not a proven threat. The consequence is that this significant uncertainty for an entire industry, an industry that relies heavily on planning and supply chain stability, becomes a profound liability. Businesses can't invest properly, they can't plan effectively, they can't innovate under this kind of cloud. A ban, activated not by security findings but by a missed deadline, well, that would severely restrict the sale and use of new DJI products regardless of any verified presented threat. The operational challenges for entities that still rely on DJI, think small businesses doing critical infrastructure inspections or public safety departments, those challenges are immediate and concrete, not speculative. A ban without a completed audit in effect punishes the users and the industry for what seems like a bureaucratic failing rather than a demonstrated security breach. How is that a responsible approach to national security?
But isn't the whole point of this legislative mechanism, perhaps, to force the market away from this dependence rather than waiting for some direct, irreversible compromise of national data? The implicit message seems clear. If this security assessment cannot be completed, or maybe if DJI is unwilling to cooperate fully to alleviate concerns, then the default position must be protection. This mechanism puts the onus squarely on the foreign manufacturer and the reviewing agency to act. And frankly, the potential cost of continued, unassessed reliance on a potentially vulnerable technology could be far, far greater than the short-term market disruption we're talking about. It's about securing our digital perimeter proactively before something bad happens.
I understand the desire for proactivity, I really do. But if the government itself isn't prioritizing the audit, doesn't that kind of undermine the very premise of an urgent incentive? Doesn't it instead just create chaos for industries that need operational stability? We're talking about a potential ban that could kick in purely due to administrative foot-dragging. That seems like a fundamentally flawed mechanism if the goal is truly to assess security risks. It essentially risks creating a self-fulfilling prophecy of disruption without actually proving the underlying security imperative, leaving everyone to wonder if the real problem is the technology or perhaps the process itself.
Okay, but let's shift slightly. While the impact is undoubtedly broad, it is essential to understand that a potential ban would not make existing DJI drones illegal to own or operate. That distinction is crucial, and it's a point often overlooked, I think. It provides a significant window for users to adapt, to develop transition plans, and yes, to explore alternative technologies. The focus is specifically on new sales to reduce future dependencies, ensuring that critical sectors like government and public safety can eventually transition to more secure, perhaps domestically sourced alternatives. This isn't about halting current operations outright, but about a strategic pivot away from reliance on a potentially compromised supply chain. It's a long-term vision, recognizing that some short-term adjustments, though challenging, are absolutely necessary for robust national security in the future. And the legislation does provide a clear deadline, giving the industry ample warning, over a year in fact, to begin this necessary shift.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that it's simply a window to adapt. Let me tell you why. The source material itself explicitly states that a ban would be a major blow to countless commercial businesses that have built their operations around DJI's reliable and cost-effective technology. This isn't merely about future sales stopping. It means, and I quote, future firmware updates, official support, and warranty claims might be at risk for existing drones. That's not a window. That's an immediate degradation of the very assets they currently rely on and operate. Think about it. Law enforcement agencies using these drones for critical search and rescue missions or accident reconstruction.
Imagine fire departments relying on them for rapid wildfire assessment, especially in remote areas, or public utilities using them for crucial infrastructure inspections of vast power line networks and pipelines.
These aren't trivial operational challenges. These are vital public services. Losing support, updates, or easy access to replacement parts for current fleets creates a direct and immediate threat to their operational readiness and effectiveness, regardless of whether owning the drone itself is technically illegal. A broken drone without a readily available replacement part is, well, just as useless as a banned one, isn't it?
I acknowledge the immediate operational concerns, I do, particularly for public safety, but the risk of continued reliance on unverified foreign technology for these very sensitive applications is precisely what the legislation seeks to address, isn't it? Can we really afford a scenario where critical data from, say, a fire scene or an infrastructure inspection is potentially compromised? The window to adapt, as I see it, allows for managed transition. Agencies can slowly phase out their DJI fleets as they reach end of life, procuring alternatives that meet higher security standards. This isn't about instant obsolescence. It's about strategic, managed divestment from a risky dependency, pushing towards a more secure ecosystem for our most sensitive applications over time.
Managed transition sounds good in theory, sure, but the reality for many of these departments, especially smaller ones, is that budgets are incredibly tight, and these drones aren't disposable toys. Replacing an entire fleet of specialized drones, which might cost tens of thousands of dollars each, and then retraining personnel on entirely new systems, that's not something that happens easily or quickly, certainly not in just a year. And when you talk about firmware updates being at risk, that's not just about getting new features. It often includes critical security patches or vital performance improvements. If those stop, then the existing drones become progressively less secure and less reliable over time, directly undermining their utility in those critical missions we just discussed. This isn't about some hypothetical future risk. It's about creating an immediate, tangible operational vulnerability for the very public services we rely on today.
Well, the necessity of this ban, even with its acknowledged short-term difficulties, powerfully highlights the U.S.'s deep vulnerability, a vulnerability stemming from its heavy reliance on foreign technology in such a critical and rapidly evolving sector. This legislation, I argue, serves as a powerful catalyst, maybe the catalyst we need to foster domestic drone manufacturing and innovation. While challenging in the near term, yes, the long-term benefits of establishing a secure, resilient, and domestic supply chain for critical technologies like this, well, they far outweigh the immediate difficulties. This is an investment in our own industrial base and national security, strategically driving the market towards more trusted solutions that aren't subject to geopolitical risks or potential data privacy concerns stemming from foreign control. It encourages the very innovation we desperately need to ensure our technological sovereignty and resilience down the line.
That's an interesting point, though I would frame it differently, perhaps with a heavier dose of realism. The source material indicates pretty clearly that while domestic drone manufacturers exist, they often do not offer the same level of performance or competitive pricing, making a smooth transition difficult for many users and businesses. This isn't just a minor inconvenience, it represents a profound gap in capabilities and cost-effectiveness that cannot, realistically, be immediately filled by existing domestic alternatives. For specialized sectors, think high-end filmmaking, where cinematic quality aerial photography is absolutely paramount, or precision agriculture, where centimeter-level spraying accuracy is critical for yield, the absence of comparable, affordable alternatives means a direct loss of operational capability, economic efficiency, and perhaps even global competitiveness. The market needs significant time, substantial investment, and frankly, demonstrable parity from domestic players to truly pivot. A sudden ban without these viable alternatives readily available risks crippling entire industries rather than simply fostering domestic growth. We're talking about creating a vacuum that current U.S. manufacturers are simply not yet equipped to fill on the scale required for many vital commercial operations.
But surely this legislative action provides precisely the protected market and the impetus needed for that domestic industry to scale up and innovate. Without such a clear directive, such a strong signal, the incentive to truly compete with an already dominant low-cost foreign player might just not be strong enough. This isn't just about replacing like for like immediately.
It's about pushing for a new generation of secure, reliable, and eventually competitive American-made drones. The demand signal created by removing a major competitor creates a powerful market opportunity for domestic players, doesn't it? It should attract investment and accelerate R&D. Is the alternative simply to accept indefinite reliance on a potentially risky foreign supply chain?
And yet, such an abrupt push can also stifle true innovation if it's too sudden and leaves a void that no one can adequately fill. You can't just mandate a market that doesn't exist to suddenly appear fully functional and competitive overnight. The risk is that industries are forced to adopt inferior, perhaps more expensive solutions, leading to reduced efficiency, higher costs for consumers, and potentially even a loss of American competitiveness in global markets that rely on this tech. It risks market consolidation around maybe a handful of nascent domestic players who weren't quite ready to compete on performance or price, rather than fostering a truly competitive and innovative ecosystem. Forcing a pivot without the infrastructure and R&D time truly in place could mean we're just trading one set of problems for another, potentially more immediate economic challenge, all for the sake of a security benefit that, let's remember, still hasn't been definitively proven by an actual audit.
Well, in light of our discussion, it remains clear to me that the legislative efforts to ban DJI are fundamentally driven by the imperative, the need to address national security and data privacy concerns that have been identified and discussed at length. The December 23 deadline, coupled with that automatic trigger, represents a critical, if undeniably challenging, step toward reducing the U.S.'s entrenched reliance on foreign manufactured technology. It aims to establish a more secure drone ecosystem, and while acknowledging the transitional difficulties and the need for significant adaptation across various sectors, the underlying goal, as I see it, is to safeguard national interests against identified vulnerabilities, ensuring that our critical infrastructure and sensitive data are not exposed to undue risk from external, potentially adversarial actors. This is a strategic imperative that, from my perspective, requires decisive action, even if it comes with a cost.
From my perspective, while, again, security concerns are absolutely valid and must be addressed rigorously, the specific mechanism and the immediate consequences of this looming ban present a profound and potentially unmitigated disruption. The current uncertainty surrounding the audit, coupled with the stark reality, the lack of readily available, competitively performing domestic alternatives, threatens to cripple vital commercial, public safety, and even consumer operations. The challenge lies not just in the idea of enhancing security, but in balancing these critical imperatives with the practical realities and the existing capabilities required to maintain essential services and economic activity, all without creating an untenable void that undermines the very sectors it aims to protect. The process, how this is being done, is just as critical as the intended outcome here.
Indeed. The discussion today has really underscored the complex interplay between national security imperatives and the practical realities of technological dependence. It's clear there are powerful arguments on both sides regarding how best to navigate this evolving landscape.
Absolutely. Whether it's ultimately seen as a necessary strategic shift or perhaps a disruptive misstep, that December 23 deadline looms large. And our listeners are left to weigh these perspectives as it approaches an approach that will undoubtedly reshape the future landscape of the U.S. drone industry.